Come From Away is the Tony Award-winning musical that's now at the Paramount Theater in Aurora. The show is about the 7,000 travelers on 38 planes that were stranded in Ghana for 9.5 days after the attacks on 9/11. Kevin Turp there was there and inspired one of the characters in the musical, and he's coming to Chicago for a very special event. Kevin, it's so great to meet you, and thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Rudy. It's wonderful to be with you.
This is one of my favorite musicals of all time. You've seen it, yeah, you just told me 112 times, and I'm sure the emotions are still there every single time you see it in whatever incarnation it is.
It's true. I've seen it 112 times over 10 years in 5 countries. I never thought this show would make it to Broadway, much less all around the world. But now I'm getting a message every week from an actor who says, "Hey, I'm playing you and Come From Away in this country or this state." And now with the rollout to regional community theaters, they have a little more flexibility. And so, for example, the staging might be a little different. And so there's always something fun and interesting to see. And I'm really looking forward to going to the Paramount.
So, if I'm correct, Michael Rubinoff, obviously a theater producer in Canada, kind of had this idea. This was 10 years after. So, people, 10 years after the attacks, went back to Newfoundland and interviewed people as far as their experiences and whatnot. I mean, talk a little bit about that and getting connected to him, because obviously there's a lot of people to choose from. And we want to know how you became a part of the show.
Right. So let's back up to September 11th unbelievably 24 years ago. My ex-partner Kevin Young and I, we were traveling from Paris into New York City when the attacks began. We were over the ocean, about 3 hours away from landing, and all of a sudden we noticed the plane is descending, something you don't want to know when you're over the ocean. And a quick turn to the right, according to the GPS, we're heading north. It looks like we're going to the North Pole. And shortly thereafter, the pilot said, due to a terrorist attack in the United States, we'll be landing in Gander. Now, I didn't know what country that was. I'd never known about this island province of Canada, but it soon became one of my favorite places on earth. So when I went back, we were living in Austin, Texas at the time, and in the show they say it's Los Angeles, but we never lived there. But it made an impact on me, and I wondered, would a small town in Texas or anywhere else in the U.S., would they do the same? A town that nearly doubles in population, people from 90 countries. And so I started telling the story to anybody I could. And so I also had an effort called Pay It Forward 9/11. Every September, we asked people to do 3 good deeds for strangers to remember those who died on 9/11. And so on the 10th anniversary, I heard there was a reunion of passengers of 10th anniversary of 9/11. So I went back, and that's when I met David Hine, Irene Senkoff, who were hired by Michael Rubinoff at Sheridan College in Toronto. And they asked me to do an interview. I gave them some video clips, and then I forgot about it. And then about 2 years go by, and I get a call. Remember that interview? Well, we wrote a musical, and you're in it. And so I think the combination of the resources I had, the fact that I could help them give video, which helped them tell the full picture of the story, I think that's why we were chosen.
A fictionalized version of yourself on stage. What was that like the very first time that you saw it?
It's the same as it is even 111 times. It's surreal. It's, no one never asked for it, never thought it would happen. Never thought I'd be talking about my delayed flight from 24 years ago after all this time, or getting a free trip to Australia to see it produced there. It's wonderful, and all the actors that tell my story. I have a spreadsheet to keep track of all their names, and so one day we'll have a Kevin T convention, I think.
I definitely will be an attendee there. I want to hear what everybody has to say about that. Because it's. I think if you were alive at that time, whether you were a kid watching it at school or an adult and knew exactly the moment that you heard about it, obviously your initial reactions, what you were doing with your family, your friends, with work, people in your household, everybody has a story to tell. And I think we were focused so much on like the US stories. And this is something you think about, like a town that wasn't necessarily connected, right to the USA, but the incredible things and the humanity and the kindness that took place, amongst this kind of really confusing time, time where people couldn't get back home.
Right. And so after the show first debuted more than 10 years ago in La Jolla, California, I asked the producers, how's it going? Is oh, people love it, standing ovation every night. But they say, why have we never heard this story? And we want more stories. So I actually wrote a book called Channel of Peace, Stranded in Gander on 9/11, which I'm going to be signing at the theater this week. And but in the book, I tell more stories that didn't make the cut in the musical, but they're stories about kindness and compassion. And I think that's what's why this show is still relevant today, is because, you know, in 2002, if you were around, the time before hashtags, I like to
Yeah.
say, the words "United We Stand" were so pervasive and around the world. And now we are so far from that. And there is a lot of hatred and war, and there's we need shows like this. We need to spread kindness and remind ourselves of our common humanity, which I experienced in Gander, Newfoundland in 2001.
And you just mentioned the book. Let's go ahead and tell people again. September 6th is when you're going to be here. You're going to be doing a talk back after the performance, and then you'll be signing books as well too. Obviously, and one of the things that I think about, as time goes on, is the younger generations that aren't didn't experience that, but get to hear the story about not necessarily just Gander, but 9/11 in general through a show like this. And sometimes they don't have that reference point of I know what I was doing, or I know where I was, or I know how I felt, but they're learning about it through your book, through the show. I mean, talk a little bit about maybe connecting with some of those fans who are maybe hearing about this for the first time, or in a way like this for the first time.
Yeah, it's a shocking fact I heard is that between a third and a half of the population of the US is under 35 years old, and so wouldn't have been alive or would not have a strong memory of a day that changed American history as we know it. And so, what's really sad is I live in New York City now, and they really don't even teach the history of the bad side of what happened on that day, which changed the world, much less the good. So we created a kindness curriculum called 11 Days of Kindness for Kids. It's free classroom lessons and activities for teachers to explain that out of where there's darkness, there's also light, that they're
Yeah.
out of bad times. And we've seen this. We saw it during the pandemic. People come together, they exercise compassion. Compassion means to engage in the suffering of others.
Yeah.
That's what happened. And I was a recipient of compassion. And so I was just at the Cape Playhouse over the weekend and saw this show there. And I was talking to some young folks who were definitely not born, and they knew a little bit about 9/11. They definitely didn't know the show. And one interesting thing, my character who sings the song, Make Me a Channel of Your Peace, and this young man, he said, where did that come from? He had never heard of it before. The opposite is like the older people that love this show, they know it from church, from Catholic churches in particular, which I grew up in. And so it's the prayer of St. Francis. I told him you ought to look it up. And so it was interesting.
I also want to say, my outfit I think is a nod to your, part of your character in the show, the gay lumberjack, and having to not have access to your luggage while you were there. It wasn't a 9.5 day extra vacation that you had. It was things had to stay on the plane, and you had to kind of navigate around and kind of deal with a new location and the kindness of others. I mean, talk a little bit about that moment and kind of what that was like for you.
Yeah, it was so powerful because they told us after sitting 15 hours on our particular plane, we landed at 10 in the morning, got off about 10 at night or something, 9 at night. It's cold, it's dark, we don't know. The pilot tells us to take the pillows off back when they had pillows on airplanes. Take the pillows off the planes, and we didn't. He said we can't tell you where you're going, we don't know. And so we go into the terminal, and there's like a party, they have food galore, people have been bringing food for hours for all the passengers. And then we got put on a school bus, sent to a community college where we were told we would be sleeping with our fellow passengers on the floor. And so about midnight, in comes a young teenage boy into the community college, and he's got two pillows and an inflatable air mattress. And, I had a credit card. I could have paid for a hotel. There's only 3 hotels, and there's 7,000 people there. So it was the first time I had to rely on the kindness of a stranger to give me a pillow for my head. So when he handed that off, I got a lump in my throat and I said, thank you. And he said, you bet. And he turned and walked away. And so that was a really super powerful moment. But it was just so amazing because almost everybody in this small town was stepping up. They were either making toast at 4 a.m. or delivering, donating clothes and socks and bedding and pillows, or giving people rides so they could go take a shower. It was, they kept saying, "Oh, you would do the same." Like, "Oh no, we wouldn't do the same." I'm
Yeah.
concerned about that. But so that's why our Pay It Forward 9/11 effort, we really try to get people to remind ourselves that random acts of kindness to strangers, they really make a difference. They actually help you. You get something called the helper's high. I did a
Yeah.
TEDx talk about that. And it's so I over the years, gives me great joy to see this ripple effect of what happened in Gander is now still continues to this day, 24 years later.
And even to that is that it doesn't have to even cost anything. I think you see somebody on public transportation or a coworker or a family member and just like, you look nice today, or how are you doing? Just even words can change that trajectory, and that kindness doesn't necessarily have to be a dollar amount, but just a smile to somebody who could use it. You never know what anybody's going through.
100%. Yeah. Let somebody cut in front of you in line, even though you're in a hurry, when you're in traffic or something. There are so many ways that don't have to cost anything. We have a lot of people that they will write thank you letters to first responders or people in the military, things that people that aren't expecting it, they don't take a lot of time or effort or money. And then it's really beautiful when we get to see what happens.
And then the final thing here, as far as other people that were on the same flight with you, or the other characters that are portrayed in the musical, who do you still keep in touch with? I mean, what was that process like for you? As far as obviously a lot of time has gone by, but who do you still kind of keep in touch with?
Yeah, there's two women that are married in New Jersey who are very close friends of mine. I see them a couple times a year to this day. The all of the real characters from Gander, because they were kind enough to take us to all this openings with the Broadway production across the world, we become a second family. So all of those people are really close to me. I'm sorry to share that the real Hannah O'Rourke, she just passed away a week and a half ago. And so this year, in fact, she was the one whose son was a FDNY firefighter who was killed in the World Trade Center while she was stranded in Gander. I got to know that family really well. They're beautiful people. And so we're asking people to remember her and her son, Kevin O'Rourke, when they go out and do their Pay It Forward actions this year.
Yeah, you reminded me of two quick things I just want to mention. I was in New York recently and took a one of the cruises that they take along, and you can go see the Statue of Liberty or whatnot. But I think it was also important because our tour guide there obviously told us some fun facts, some fun trivia. But when we got to the site of the World Trade Centers, was like, you need to have a moment of silence. Here's why this is important. Take the time to go do that. This is, we need to honor their memory of the people, New York who built it, whose lives were lost or changed because of it. And it was just such an important part that like it's still going on, that obviously, you might think of other fun things, and time has passed. And like you said, a third or a fourth of everyone who's alive in the US, doesn't have that point of reference, but that they're still making it a point to point out of like, it's not just a building you're walking past or something you're seeing. You need to take the time to learn the history, because the reason you're enjoying the city right now is because of the people who kind of were affected by all of this. And I just think
Right.
that that's
Yeah.
a powerful thing that still continue to happening.
They brought it back. Thank you for mentioning that. Yeah, I highly encourage people when they come to New York to go to visit the memorial and museum, and also at Washington, D.C. We can't forget the lives that were lost at the Pentagon, as well as in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. Those are the people that we want to honor every September 11th. It's a National Day of Service and Remembrance. We said we would never forget, but kind of a lot of people are forgetting.
Yeah, we just need those little reminders that as time goes on. And
That's
then one
why
final
we're here.
thing. Oh, exactly. Being at the Tonys, what was that experience like for you?
Oh, incredible. Incredible. Kevin and I were longtime musical theater fans. We had season tickets for Broadway across America and Austin, sat in the front row. And so can you imagine 15 years later, like the show that you would normally see is now on stage, and there's a character playing you on stage. It's, mind blowing. And so, yeah, but going to the Tonys was amazing. We, didn't win the big prize, but the best direction was great. What's amazing is the show in the UK, the West End, where it started. It's won the Olivier Award, and now next year, 175 theaters in the UK are going to run this production.
That is amazing. It's a show that needs to live on, a conversation that needs to continue to have, and obviously a message of kindness, of paying it forward, of empathy, and resilience. And I think this is why that show will always, continue to go on.
Oh, one quick thing, if I could add, I forgot that
Sure.
because the timing is great for this, is that if we just opened a charity sweepstakes where people can win a trip for two to go see Come From Away in the town where it happened. It's called the Great Gander Getaway Giveaway. And you can visit our website, payitforward911.org, to enter, and it closes on September 12th.
That is perfect timing. Kevin, thank you so much for your time today. I could have talked to you for 3.5 hours and not gotten all my. I told you we'd take a little shorter time, but you're incredible, and thank you for the extra time today.
Thank
Come
you.
From Away, Paramount Aurora.com for those tickets. The show is now through October 12th. Kevin's going to be here on September, or his book, Channel of Peace, which he'll be signing. There's also copies of it through the entire run there at the Paramount Aurora. Pay it forward. Can you tell me that website again?
Payitforward911.org.
ORG. Give him a follow on social media. An important story, important memories to share, and please go support. Obviously, local theater as well too. The Paramount Aurora is an amazing location. Go check out the show. And Kevin, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you.